You look at your job, your relationship, your reputation, and you see solid, permanent things. Things with weight. Things that seem unshakable. And because they seem unshakable, they terrify you. You organize your entire life around protecting them, pleasing them, holding them together. But what if none of them are what they appear to be? What if the solidity you see is a story you're telling yourself? Marcus Aurelius saw through all of it. And that's exactly what made him unbreakable. Here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Most of what controls you because you never actually look at it. You react to the surface. You react to the name, the label, the reputation, the image. You never strip it down to what it actually is. And because you don't, you spend your life flinching at shadows. There is a practice. One practice. It is simple enough that a child could understand it, and so powerful that the most powerful man in the world used it every single day. The practice is this: you learn to see through things. Not around them. Not past them. Through them. You take any object, any situation, any person, any fear that has a grip on you, and you reduce it to what it actually is in physical, material terms. You strip off the veneer. You pull away the name. And what's left is almost always smaller, simpler, and far less intimidating than the story you've been telling yourself. Self-mastery isn't something you feel. It's something you build through seeing clearly. Think about what happens to you on a normal day. You wake up, and within minutes the world starts pressing in. You check your phone and there it is, the notification, the email, the social post, the message that carries the faint suggestion that someone out there has an opinion about you, and that opinion matters. Your chest tightens. Your mind starts racing. You feel the pull of obligations that don't even exist yet but that you're already dreading. You feel the weight of a reputation you didn't consciously choose to carry but that you carry anyway, every single day, like a backpack full of stones. Now ask yourself, what is that reputation, actually? What is it made of? If you could hold it in your hand, what would you be holding? You'd be holding nothing. You'd be holding the scattered impressions of people who are mostly too busy with their own lives to think about you for more than a few seconds. That's it. That's the whole thing. A loose collection of fleeting thoughts in other people's heads, most of which are wrong, and none of which you can control. Yet you live your life as if this invisible, weightless thing were made of iron. This is what Marcus understood. He was the Emperor of Rome. He had more power, more wealth, more status than anyone alive today could even comprehend. And yet he sat down, night after night, in his military tent on the frontiers of the empire, and he practiced seeing through everything that the rest of the world considered impressive and permanent. A fine meal? He didn't see a fine meal. He saw a dead animal. He saw the flesh of a creature that was once alive and is now dead, prepared and seasoned and arranged on a plate to create an impression. That's what it is. That's all it is. The luxury, the elegance, the ceremony, all of it is a layer of decoration applied to a piece of dead animal so that you will be impressed, so that you will want it, so that you will feel that consuming it means something about who you are. But when you see the dead animal underneath the sauce, the meal loses its grip on you. You can still enjoy it. You can still eat it. But you are no longer ruled by it. You no longer chase it. You no longer feel that its absence means you are less. That's the entire point. This practice is not about making the world ugly. It's about making the world honest. It's about removing the false glamour that things wear so that you can engage with them as they are, not as your imagination pretends they are. Here's what nobody tells you about desire. Desire does not come from the object. It comes from the story you tell yourself about the object. The object itself is neutral. It's just matter. It's just material. The desire is manufactured in your mind, by the meaning you project onto the material. And that meaning, that's something you can examine. That's something you can take apart. Try it. Think of something you want so badly it almost hurts. A promotion. A person. A possession. A certain kind of life. Now strip it. Take away the name. Take away the status. Take away the image of how it will look to other people when you have it. What's left? What is the actual physical reality of this thing? A promotion is a change in title and a change in how many numbers appear on a statement. A person you desire is a human being with a body and a mind and flaws and moods and a limited lifespan. A possession is a configuration of materials, metal, glass, leather, fabric, assembled in a factory and shipped in a box. Is that nothing? No. It's real. But it's not what you thought it was. It's not the glowing, magical thing your imagination built. It's smaller than that. Simpler than that. And that's not a disappointment. That's freedom. Because now you can choose. Now you can decide whether you actually want this thing, or whether you were just chasing the story. Most of the time, you were chasing the story. This is what the practice does. It returns you to choice. It removes the automatic, reflexive pull that things have over you and replaces it with conscious awareness. You stop being a puppet of your own projections. You start being someone who sees clearly and acts deliberately. Now let's talk about fear, because this is where the practice becomes something close to a superpower. You have fears. Everyone does. You fear failure. You fear rejection. You fear loss. You fear being exposed as not good enough. You fear that the life you've built could collapse. These fears sit in your chest like a low hum, always there, always running, draining your energy, shaping your decisions, keeping you small and compliant and safe in ways that aren't actually safe at all. But what is fear, actually? What is it made of? If you could hold your fear in your hand, what would you be holding? You would be holding a thought. That's it. A mental image of something that hasn't happened. A prediction about a future that doesn't exist. Your fear is not a physical object. It's not a force of nature. It's a story your mind is telling you about what might occur, and your body is responding to that story as if it were already real. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. This is not a platitude. This is a clinical observation that has been confirmed by every human being who has ever stopped long enough to actually look at their own experience. The things you fear most almost never happen. And when something difficult does happen, it is almost always less severe, less total, less annihilating than the version you had been rehearsing in your mind. So apply the practice. Take your fear and strip it. What are you actually afraid of? Not the label. Not the category. Not the abstract concept of failure. What is the specific, physical, material reality of the thing you fear? If you lose your job, what happens? You don't have income for a period. You have to find another job. You have to adjust your spending. You have to have some difficult conversations. That's it. Those are the actual components. None of them are pleasant, but none of them are the apocalypse your fear is promising you. If someone rejects you, what happens? A person says no. Or a person walks away. Or a person forms a negative opinion. That opinion exists in their mind. It does not exist in your body. It does not change your physical reality. It does not alter a single atom of who you are. It is a thought in someone else's head, and you have been treating it as if it were a verdict handed down by the universe. See through it. That's the practice. See through the appearance to the substance, and almost every time, the substance is manageable. Not easy. Not painless. But manageable. Survivable. Something a person of character can face and move through. The reason this matters so much, the reason it's not just a clever mental trick but something that can transform your life, is that most of your suffering comes not from what happens to you but from the weight of the meaning you've attached to what happens to you. You don't just lose a job. You lose a job and you tell yourself it means you're a failure. You don't just get rejected. You get rejected and you tell yourself it means you're unlovable. You don't just face a setback. You face a setback and you tell yourself it means the universe is against you. But those meanings are not real. They are not facts. They are interpretations. And interpretations can be examined, questioned, and dismantled. This is what Marcus was doing when he analyzed things into their material components. He was dismantling interpretations. He was refusing to let his mind add layers of meaning that weren't there. A purple robe is just fabric dyed with a certain color. It is not dignity. It is not power. It is not worth. It is cloth. The dignity, the power, the worth, those are stories. And if you live your life chasing stories, you will never touch anything real. Now think about the social constructs that intimidate you into compliance every single day. The hierarchy at your workplace. The expectations of your family. The unwritten rules of your social circle. The opinions of strangers on the internet. These things feel massive. They feel like walls. They feel like forces you have to navigate around or submit to. But what are they, actually? A workplace hierarchy is a set of agreements between a small number of people about who makes decisions and who follows them. That's it. It's not a natural law. It's not gravity. It's a convention, and conventions can be questioned. Your family's expectations are a set of inherited assumptions, most of which were formed by people who were themselves responding to pressures and fears they never examined. The opinions of strangers are electrical signals traveling through servers and appearing as text on a screen. They have no physical presence in your life whatsoever unless you choose to give them one. When you see through these things, something shifts. You don't become reckless. You don't become cold. You become free. You become someone who can participate in the social world without being consumed by it. You can hold a job without being owned by it. You can be in a relationship without being defined by it. You can have a reputation without being a prisoner of it. You can engage fully and still know, at every moment, that the things you're engaging with are not ultimate. They are not permanent. They are not you. And that knowledge, that steady, clear, honest knowledge, is what makes you unbreakable. Not because nothing can touch you, but because you know exactly what is touching you and exactly what it is made of. You're no longer reacting to ghosts. You're no longer flinching at shadows. You're seeing things as they are, and you're responding to things as they are, and that clarity is a kind of armor that no external circumstance can penetrate. Let's go deeper, because this practice has layers that most people never reach. Think about the things that impress you. The things that make you feel small. Maybe it's a person who seems more successful than you. Maybe it's a lifestyle that seems more glamorous. Maybe it's an institution that seems more powerful. Whatever it is, you feel a pull, a combination of admiration and intimidation, a sense that this person or this thing is somehow more than you are, somehow above you, somehow operating on a level you can't reach. Now strip it. That successful person, what are they, actually? They are a human being with a body that gets tired, a mind that gets anxious, a life full of problems you can't see, and a future that includes aging and death. Their success is a story that other people tell about them, a narrative constructed from selective facts, designed to impress. Behind the story is a person who wakes up in the morning with bad breath and worries about things you'll never know about. That's not a dismissal. It's a correction. It's seeing them at their actual scale, human, finite, imperfect, rather than at the scale your imagination has inflated them to. That glamorous lifestyle, what is it, actually? It's a series of purchases. It's a collection of objects and experiences that someone has paid for, arranged, and displayed. Underneath the display is the same human machinery, the same need for sleep, the same vulnerability to illness, the same confrontation with mortality. The glamour is a surface. It is not depth. It is not substance. It is decoration applied to a life that is, at its core, no different from yours. That powerful institution, what is it, actually? It is a group of people working within a set of rules they've agreed to follow. It is buildings and documents and routines. It has no mind of its own. It has no will. It is made of human beings, and human beings are finite, fallible, and afraid. The power is a collective agreement, and collective agreements can be changed. Do you see what happens when you do this? The world shrinks back down to its actual size. Things that loomed over you become things that sit in front of you. Things that seemed untouchable become things you can examine, understand, and engage with on your own terms. You stop looking up at everything. You start looking at everything. This is the shift. Looking up is servility. Looking at is clarity. And the difference between the two is the difference between a life lived in reaction and a life lived with intention. Now, there's something important to understand about this practice. It's not nihilism. It's not cynicism. It's not about deciding that nothing matters. In fact, it's the opposite. When you strip away the false meanings, the manufactured glamour, the projected fears, what you're left with is what actually matters. And what actually matters is almost never what you thought mattered. What matters is not the reputation. What matters is the character that produced whatever reputation you have. What matters is not the possession. What matters is the relationship you have with desire itself. What matters is not the outcome. What matters is the quality of the action you took. What matters is not what other people think. What matters is what you know to be true when you sit alone in a quiet room and no one is watching. The practice of seeing through things doesn't empty your life. It empties your life of illusions, and in the space where the illusions were, something real grows. Something solid. Something that doesn't depend on the opinions of others or the fluctuations of fortune. That something is your own judgment. Your own will. Your own capacity to see clearly, act justly, and endure whatever comes without being broken by it. This is what Marcus was building, night after night, in that military tent. He wasn't building a philosophy. He was building a mind that couldn't be conquered. He was building a way of seeing that would hold steady whether he was facing a palace intrigue or a barbarian army. And it worked. Not because it made him invulnerable, he got sick, he lost people he loved, he faced betrayal, but because it made him someone who could face all of that and still remain himself. You can do this too. Not because you're an emperor. Because you're not. Because you're someone who is tired of being pushed around by things that aren't even real. You're tired of wanting things you don't actually want. You're tired of fearing things that haven't happened. You're tired of performing for an audience that isn't paying attention. You're tired of living inside a story that someone else wrote. So start practicing. Today. Right now, if you want. Pick one thing that has a grip on you. One thing that you want too much or fear too much or respect too blindly. And strip it. Take off the name. Take off the story. Take off the image. Describe what's left in the plainest terms you can find. Not to make it ugly. To make it honest. To make it the size it actually is, rather than the size your imagination has made it. Do this with your fears. Do this with your desires. Do this with the things that intimidate you and the things that seduce you. Do it with your job title and your social media presence and your bank balance and your relationship status. Do it with the opinions people have about you and the opinions you have about yourself. Strip them all. See them all. And watch what happens. What happens is that you stop reacting. You stop being jerked around by every impression that crosses your mind. You start having space between the thing and your response, space between the event and your interpretation, space between what happens and what you decide it means. And in that space, you find something you may not have felt in a long time. You find yourself. Not the self that performs. Not the self that worries. Not the self that chases. The self that sees. The self that chooses. The self that is, underneath every story, still here, still whole, still free. Because that's the real discovery of this practice. When you see through everything else, what you end up seeing is yourself. Not the constructed self. Not the ego with its demands and its fears. The deeper self. The observing self. The part of you that has been watching this whole time, quietly, steadily, waiting for you to stop being distracted by appearances and come home. The Stoics didn't invent this. They found it. They tested it in war and exile and loss and power, and it held. It held because it's not a theory. It's a description of how things actually are when you're willing to look at them without flinching. And here's the thing about looking without flinching. It's hard at first. Really hard. Because you've spent your entire life adding layers of meaning to things. You've been trained since childhood to see certain objects as impressive, certain outcomes as catastrophic, certain people as superior. That training runs deep. It's automatic. It feels like just seeing things as they are. But it's not. It's seeing things as you've been taught to see them. And what you've been taught is mostly wrong. So the practice takes repetition. It takes discipline. Not the discipline of forcing yourself to feel something you don't feel. The discipline of looking again and again and again at what's actually in front of you, until the false impressions lose their grip and the truth becomes your default setting. Marcus did this every day. Not because he was weak. Because he was honest enough to know that even an emperor, especially an emperor, is constantly surrounded by people who want him to see things a certain way. Flatterers who want him to see himself as more than he is. Critics who want him to see himself as less. Circumstances that want him to see threats where there are none and comforts where there is nothing lasting. He practiced seeing through all of it, every day, because he knew that the moment he stopped practicing, the illusions would creep back in. They'll creep back in for you too. That's not a failure. That's just how the mind works. It's a meaning-making machine. It will always try to dress things up, to inflate them, to make them seem more significant or more terrifying than they are. Your job is not to stop the mind from doing this. Your job is to notice when it's happening and correct it. To catch the false impression and replace it with the honest one. To see the dead animal under the gourmet meal, the human being under the title, the thought under the fear. Over and over. That's the practice. That's the whole thing. And here's what it gives you. Not happiness, exactly. Not the kind of happiness that comes from getting what you want, because you've seen through wanting. Not peace, exactly, not the kind of peace that comes from avoiding difficulty, because you've seen through the idea that difficulty is something to avoid. What it gives you is something more durable than either of those. It gives you clarity. Steady, unshakable, clear-seeing clarity that stays with you whether you're in a palace or a prison, whether you're celebrated or ignored, whether you're winning or losing. Because once you can see through everything, nothing can hide from you. Not your fears, not your desires, not your weaknesses, not the mechanisms that have been controlling you without your knowledge. It all gets brought into the light. It all gets reduced to its actual size. And in that light, at that size, you find that you can handle it. All of it. Not because you're superhuman. Because you're finally seeing things as they are, and things as they are almost always manageable by someone who is willing to look at them honestly. So let's bring this back to you. To your life. To the specific things that are pressing on you right now. There is something in your life that has too much power over you. You know what it is. It might be a person whose approval you keep chasing. It might be a fear of what will happen if you finally say what you actually think. It might be an image of success that you've been pursuing for so long that you've forgotten to ask whether it's even something you want. It might be a story about who you are, not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough, that you've been carrying since you were young. Whatever it is, strip it. Right now. In your mind. Take away the name and the narrative and the emotional charge and look at what's actually there. A person is a person. A fear is a thought. An image of success is a fantasy. A story about who you are is a story, and stories can be rewritten by the person who sees through them. You are that person. Self-mastery isn't something you feel. It's something you build through seeing clearly. And clear seeing is not a gift. It's a practice. It's the practice of refusing to be impressed by surfaces, refusing to be frightened by projections, refusing to be seduced by appearances. It's the practice of looking at everything in your life, the good and the bad, the desirable and the terrifying, and saying, what is this, actually? What is it made of? How long will it last? And who am I in relation to it, once I've seen it honestly? Ask those questions. Ask them about your job. Ask them about your relationship. Ask them about your reputation. Ask them about your fears. Ask them about the things you want and the things you're running from. Ask them about the version of yourself you present to the world and the version you hide. Ask them until the answers stop being scary and start being simple. Because simple is what the truth always is, once you've stripped away everything that isn't true. The world will keep trying to dress things up. It will keep adding layers of glamour to objects, urgency to situations, significance to events. That's what the world does. That's what it's always done. You can't stop it. But you don't have to be fooled by it. You can see through it. You can be in the world without being of it. You can hold things lightly because you know what they're made of. You can act with full commitment and zero attachment, because you understand that the outcome is just another thing, another arrangement of circumstances that can be stripped down, seen through, and met with clarity rather than fear. That's what Marcus did. That's what made him unbreakable. Not his power. Not his position. His seeing. His willingness to look at everything, including himself, without flinching, without adding, without subtracting, without pretending. Just seeing. Clearly. Steadily. Every day. And that's the invitation. Not to become a philosopher. Not to retreat from the world. To stay right where you are, in your life, with your challenges, and to start seeing through them. One thing at a time. One fear at a time. One desire at a time. Until the world that once seemed so heavy and so solid and so permanent reveals itself for what it actually is, a collection of fleeting, material, mostly manageable things that only have as much power over you as you grant them. Stop granting. Start seeing. And watch everything change. Not out there. In here. In the space where you've been carrying weight that was never real. In the place where fear has been living rent-free in your mind. In the quiet center that has been there all along, underneath every illusion, waiting for you to clear away the debris and discover it. That center is you. The real you. The one that sees through everything. Stay clear.